Pergamum is today most famous for being one of the seven churches of Revelation. This has not always been the case. Pergamon has a rich history in being one of the most influential cities in Asia Minor. Pergamon was estimated to be home to around 200,000 during the Roman period. This likely made Pergamon the sixth largest city in the ancient known world, just behind Ephesus. Pergamon's Acropolis was an impenetrable fortress built on a hill almost 400 meters high, which made it very secure. What makes Pergamon so interesting is the fact that it wasn't along the Silk Road or on any absolutely crucial positions, unlike Ephesus, for example. Instead, Pergamon seemed to hold deep cultural significance in the region, having ties to Hercules as well as obtaining a large part of Alexander the Great's inheritance. Pergamon developed a large cultural centre in the Greco-Roman world. Pliny the Elder called Pergamon the most famous place in Asia. This was achieved using a lot of that wealth to construct a number of famous structures which accompanied each other on the Acropolis and down below. Pergamon was at its prime during the time of the Pax Romana from 27 BC to 180 AD. During this Roman period, Pergamon received the status of Necaras, which is a title that shows Pergamon was an exemplar of Rome. The word literally means guardian of the temple. This title was given to Pergamon twice after they built each temple to the imperial cult. In this way, Pergamon was the center of the cult worship in Asia Minor. Furthermore, the healing center of Asclepion was famous during this time, which helped bring travelers from near and far alongside with their money. Asclepion was renowned as one of two most famous healing centers in the known ancient world. Education was also a large part of the Pergamonese culture. In the library, they held the second largest collection of volumes in the world, so much so the Egyptians stopped supplying papyrus in order to directly inhabit the Pergamon library. Last on the key Pergamon sites are the beautiful temples that adorned and looked over the city. The patron gods of Pergamon were Zeus, Athena, Dionysus, and Asclepius, all of which had beautiful temples and sanctuaries. Pergamon was covered with temples, but at the highest point was a temple to the imperial cult, Trajan's temple. Imagine if you were living in Pergamon, you had the protection of the emperor through your worship to the imperial cult. You have the most beautiful and renowned temple to the key god of the Parthenon, Zeus. You have the biggest library and the god of wisdom in Athena. You have the theatre and the god of wine and parties, Dionysus. And if something goes wrong, you always have one of the best healing sites in the world, the sanctuary of Asclepion. The city of Pergamon had everything the average person would need. On the other hand, it was also a very difficult place to be a Christian or a Jew in the face of that cult worship. In the letter to the Pergamonese Christians, Christ congratulates the persistence of many of the believers, knowing how difficult it would be to stay faithful to Christ in such a city. Yet Christ does rebuke the community for having some in their midst that are still dabbling with, or at least benefiting from, the worship of other gods and of the cult practices. Through visiting and researching the city of Pergamon, one can have many revelations and insights in the scriptures. The view I'd like to talk about today is the view that the beast and the evil rising up in Revelations primarily was referring to the Roman Empire and the imperial cult that the Christians faced in the first century. The reference to the throne of Satan might be a reference to Pergamon's position as a throne or capital of the imperial cult in Asia Minor, which is the location of the seven churches. Although there are many other options in Pergamon for the throne of Satan, the imperial cult, which is centered around Trajan's temple, makes the most sense to me. The new challenge emerging during the early church was the growth in importance of that such imperial cult. Before then, if Christians didn't worship the gods themselves were responsible to take action. Now not worshipping the emperor was classed as treason, punishable by death. Moreover, people worshipped the emperor because their lives depended on it. The emperor supplied the city with water. They made sure there was food. They protected the people with their armies. When one did not worship the emperor, they put all of this at risk. In Pergamon, we see a lavish city that offers everything a Greco-Roman world could give. Seeing Pergamon in person reminds me of the risk that prosperity, education, and self-reliance has. The Pergamonese thought they were the city of choice in the area, the exemplars. This is how it should look. It seems like some of the Christians at Pergamon became complacent. They got caught up in that such culture. This was a growing threat in the Greco-Roman world, and seeing Pergamon helps one to realize the context the New Testament is addressing. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you've got something out of it and it's really encouraged you to check out some ancient sites of the Bible.